So for step 17, checking the RC equipment. Well, this is a necessary step because we need to connect everything and make sure that the servo is in neutral before you start putting on all of the servo saver pieces and then ultimately the steering arms. But there's more to it than that, because depending on the servo you pick, things may look a little different. So you can see here, they're basically asking you or showing you how to select a servo horn screw. Well, you can see that the servo I'm going to be using for this is the S148 Futaba, and I've already taken off the servo horn that it came with, which it looks like that. Now if you take the screw out of that, you can see here it says, okay, when you take the screw out of the servo horn that the servo came with, is it a tapping screw or a standard screw? Well, I can tell that the one that mine came with is a tapping screw. Okay, so now that it's a tapping screw, how thick is it? Well, you can see that with mine, I'm going to put it over there because it's the thin one. It's kind of hard to see there. It's the thin one. Come on, stay over into your spot. There we go. It's the thin one. So I need an MC7 screw. And as luck would have it, the kit comes with an MC7 screw. So I've got the screw I'm going to need for the servo saver and for my servo. And of course we've got ball connectors too. So these other screws that they're showing, it's all going to be dependent upon what servo you bought for your kit. And I mean, you can see here that even the servo saver pieces in the kit, we're going to want an E7 because it's a Futaba servo, which if you had a Sanwa, you'd need this other piece. But depending on your servo, you're going to need to pick and choose which one works best. So I'll set this up and let's do a servo neutral test. So I've connected everything up, and I actually have decided to use a Tamiya speed controller that I had kicking around, which is the TEU 105BK. One of the reasons I've decided to use the Tamiya speed controller versus the Hobby Wing is because the way in which the HotShot II is put together, you don't have access to the electronics box very easily after it's been installed. And as it's kind of a completely sealed unit, I've kind of decided to use this one because I know that the on-off switch has a protective rubber boot that will make sure that no dirt, grime, water gets into the box. But we'll see how this goes. I just don't like having things locked in. I'm not sure that I'm a fan of the way the HotShot II is put together when it comes to the electronics install. I'm going to try this out first anyway. If I change my mind later, maybe we'll switch it to the Hobby Wing. I'm just not sure yet. But if we do what we need to do here, I've turned on the transmitter, I've got my servo here, and I've got my on-off switch. So we should see a little shimmy with the servo, and that will tell us that this is in neutral. I'm going to make sure this is right. I'm going to turn it on. There we go. So you saw it move, so you now know that the servo's in neutral and we can go ahead and attach things. I'm going to turn it on again, and you see it was a little less. The first time it did it, it was actually quite a bit, which meant it was quite a bit out. But now, turning it on and off, it just does a little bit of a shimmy. So we're good to go. It's in neutral, so I can turn all of this off and we can start installing the servo saver. So I'll turn that off. I've already pulled together the pieces that we need for the servo saver here, and we've got our little hardware pieces here. So I'll set this up and we'll start attaching all of the servo saver pieces to the servo. So first off, let's get these ball connectors attached to part E8. And you can see in terms of the positioning, they want the sort of shelf to be facing forward. You can see on the back side it's just completely flat, but you can see that the sort of little shelf idea is facing forward, so we know that that's the direction this all needs to connect to. So I'm just going to get that started, which seems to be okay, and just find the right one. Yes, that's the one. So I'm just going to put this in as level as I can. Use the box wrench to kind of help with the leveling of it. Looks like it's going in fine. It looks pretty level. So we'll just spin this on. All right, it's all the way to the end. I haven't over tightened it. I've just made sure that it's got to the end. We're gonna do the same thing with the other one, and this time I'm gonna just put this screw right into the box wrench. And we will do it again, keeping this relatively level. It's kind of handy to have a bit of leverage with the box wrench in terms of being able to screw this in, so you can get a pretty level feel with this. And there we go. So there is our ball connectors attached to that servo saver. So now it's a matter of attaching it to the servo itself. Now you can see that in terms of this, you can see that the wire's coming out from this side. So we know that in terms of the positioning, we're going to need to attach it this way. So if we put this piece on as they show, just like that, then we know that this piece is going to fit in there like that. And then there's the little piece as well, which I have there. But what I want to check is, knowing this, if you see how we have the servo, it did the neutral shimmy, but we need to see which way is going to fit best. Will it fit? See, you see how that's not level? But if I move it the other way, it's more level. Yeah, see, it's not quite right, but we can do fine tuning once we've got the radio installed, because we can use the trims. But when I had it that way, it was far too much to the right. This is only a little bit, so it only requires a little bit of an adjustment. So I'm okay with the positioning of that. So we can pop that back in, and then we have the little plastic part that's going to fit into the center, and then we have our little MC7 tapping screw that Tamiya gives you to replace what came with the servo. Now I'm going to okay, I'm feeling some resistance, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thumb to hold it in place so that it doesn't move on me when I'm screwing this in, even though it still did. But that's okay. I will still hold it, and I'm just going to give it a little bit more of a turn. So there we go. So that is how your servo saver should look when it's installed, with the cable coming off to the right. Great. So that means step 17 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 18 and attach the steering servo. And you can see we've got to put the servo itself into the box and create or build the steering arms.